Good evening, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting of February 14, 2013. We have a small agenda this evening, and the first agenda item is an update from the Capital Budget Committee. Mike Cassetti's here this evening, Chair of the Capital Budget Committee. Mike, at this point you have the floor. Why don't you tell us what's going on?
Jim, thanks so much, and thanks for inviting us in. I see John Cohen just joined us from Capital Budget and Warrant Committee as well. Yesterday we gave an update to the Warrant Committee. I think you were there, Jim. So just wanted to update the board on where we are in the process of reviewing capital budget for the coming fiscal year. As you know, we get submissions from the different organizations, committees around town for both the upcoming fiscal year as well as the subsequent four after that. And we always try to evaluate the different requests on both an absolute term and absolute basis and relative basis. So absolute in terms of, is there a need? Have we explored all the options? And do we think it makes sense to go forward and recommend the suggested option? And then on a relative basis, we always try to look at, what's the total amount of capital budget spending or requests for the upcoming year. We try to keep capital spending relatively flat to the extent we can. So we look at what's the overall capital expense expected for the year and then manage that accordingly. Just in terms of quick status update, I think we were a little bit behind where we wanted to be, but we're catching up quickly. We have 22 capital requests this year, 6 items that we haven't, the committee hasn't reached a final vote or decision on, but we've got some follow-up items with each of those. The total requests right now total a little over 700,000. There's one large item for 173,000, the street sweeper for highway department, which represents about a quarter of the total. And we're looking to finalize our recommendations on our next meeting on the 26th. So I think the board has a copy of the detailed spreadsheet with all the requests on that. I can go through that in as much detail or in as much summary as we'd like. I figured I'd go through each item and we can address each one as it comes up. And just starting with the request for cemetery, and we'll talk about 2014. The vast majority of our time is spent on 2014, the upcoming fiscal year. So we'll talk about those items. The request for the $22,825 for a utility vehicle for cemetery. There's an estimated trade-in on that. $4,250. The amount that's shown there is gross, so would be less net of a potential trade-in. Current vehicles from 2003. It has over 900 hours on it. It's deteriorating. It's starting to rust. It has a small bed in the back that's used for carrying sand, stone, fertilizer, etc. It's also used for plowing, and it's used not just for cemetery but for park and rec and highway as well. So the committee recommended supporting that. For the fire department, the Squad 2 truck there that you see for $90,000, that's was a vehicle that was acquired in 1984. It's used for wildfire suppression, brush fires. It's all-wheel drive, which allows for off-road access, also access in inclement weather for slopes, getting in driveways, that kind of thing. Very versatile. Important feature about this truck is it has a 1,000-gallon tank for carrying water in it, which in a town like Dover that's on predominantly well water, it's really important. And I think that's a critical feature in the decision to recommend refurbishing this truck. We have had discussions with the fire department about should we replace this versus refurbishing it. If we were to replace the truck, estimate is a truck would be $150,000 to $170,000 to replace it. However, it couldn't be a one-for-one replacement. We can't get that same 1,000-gallon truck in a new vehicle. The codes have changed. And again, the feeling is that carrying capacity is really important. So hence the decision to refurbish rather than buy new. Estimates for how long this truck could last with the refurbishment are between 10 and 15 additional years. Now our committee, the Capital Budget Committee, hasn't voted or recommended this, we're looking for some additional detail as to where will that 90,000 specifically be spent. We know that, we've been told that there's 25,000 that would be used for refurbishing. It's a foam tank and some piping associated with that, so we have some specificity around that. But for the rest of it, we're looking for as much detail as we can get. The nature of this is that they may not know that something needs to be replaced or be refurbished until they kind of get in and look at it, but we're looking for them to give us our best estimate of what constitutes the 90,000.
And I think also, almost as important is a prioritized list of the issues that they have, in addition to the individual dollars.
Right. So if we needed to potentially not support a full 90,000, we can make a more informed decision of what the most critical items are. Another request from fire department for 11,000 is for SCBA bottles. These are just replacing 12 older bottles. These are used, for breathing and smoking conditions. They need to be tested occasionally. In order to test them, they need to be pressurized, and when they're pressurized, they can only be done, I believe it's 3 times. So just in due course, these need to be replaced. The highway department is requesting a street sweeper. This is the largest item that's being requested this year. It was acquired in 1997. It's been anticipated that this would be needed. It's been in the capital plan in out years and brought forward. It's used extensively throughout the town for sand. It's cleaned up oil spills, glass. Plays an important role in keeping, sand, salt, leaves out of the drains. Craig Hughes at Highway Department anticipates that we would auction this, the old sweeper off for an estimated $10,000. As we know, Highway Department keeps very good control or very good care of their vehicles, and the committee looked at this and feels like it's definitely time to be replaced.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I
sir.
haven't dealt with the highway for about 12 years, and Scotch tape has held this thing. This machine, 8 years ago, was due to be replaced. And Craig Hughes and his men have worked on it, sent it out, get re-weld several times. It's amazing that it lasted this long.
That's good. It's a continuation of how Craig Hughes and his crew handle their equipment, so thank you, Joe.
Yep, it's a good point, and you notice that just by
Yes.
looking at it and Craig's approach to managing his fleet of vehicles. Next item is a request for $15,000 for shelving and furniture for the children's room at the library. Half of the library's collection and circulation are child-specific. The furniture that's in the children's area now is not child-specific. When you go in, I have been in there dozens of times, and this never occurred to me until I went to look at it explicitly, and you realize it's all adult-sized furniture. The shelving has been there a number of years. It doesn't lend itself. It needs to be replaced, and the new furniture, or the new shelving would be mobile and can be moved and reconfigured. The request for $15,000 is less than half of what the total project will cost. The quote for both the furniture and the shelving is a little over $35,000, and the library intends to seek alternative funding for the balance of this. The shelving would be ADA compliant, easily repositioned during events. It's a little narrower, allows for more usable space in the room, and we haven't voted on this just because we're waiting a final quote, but now that we have that, I anticipate that we would support that. Parks and Recreation, there's a request for a large tractor mower that, again, the committee hasn't voted on. This is for $35,783. The mower has over 1,400 hours on it. It's used in playing fields, Channing Pond, library, town common, Chickering, used for both mowing and for plowing. There's an estimated trade-in value of just under $13,000. The committee hasn't voted on this. There was one member of the committee who wasn't at our last meeting who went along with some of us to look at the vehicle, and we want to get her opinion on it before we vote on that. Request for a department vehicle for Park and Rec as well. This was a truck that was acquired in year 2000, has 105,000 miles on it. Replacement vehicle would be a Ford Explorer. It's used for transporting athletic equipment, supplies, field maintenance equipment to the fields. The replacement vehicle would be a Ford Explorer.
That's the pickup right now?
Yes.
Why are they going from a pickup to an enclosed vehicle?
I know part of it was carrying the equipment. I know it was, that was part of the rationale. I don't know if there was a specific.
The police horses and all kinds of things always sticking out of that pickup truck. You know, so easy to transport, and so I was just curious in why
Yeah.
they'd go to a more difficult situation in moving things around town.
Yeah, I don't know the specific answer to that. And the Capital Budget Committee recommended that. Also for Parks and Rec, refurbishing Carroll Community Center gym floor. The floor itself is over 40 years old. The request for the 4,200 would be to do some light sanding to seal the floor. Right now, the Carroll Community Center revolving fund is not sufficient to cover the ongoing maintenance of that, which Park and Rec estimated to be $2,500 per year.
Can I just correct you for a second?
Yeah.
The Carroll Community Center does not have a revolving fund.
I'm sorry.
No, just so
Right,
that
right.
everyone's clear. It would be the Park and Rec Commission who has the
The
revolving.
revenue from
Right.
the Carroll
From the
Community Center.
programs that the Park and Rec do,
Right.
run expenses.
Yeah, and the Park and Rec estimated the ongoing cost would be $2,500 per year, which they would use the revolving fund as well as operational funds to support that. You know, the initial request for the 4,200, you know, we still have some questions about, you know, what is available in the revolving funds, and we want to be sure that there's a commitment to use the revolving funds and operating for the 2,500 going forward. The refurbishment was a change from the original plan to replace the floor, so I think Park and Rec did a good job of kind of evaluating options and coming to the conclusion that it could be sanded and sealed and used from that point. I used it. Police Department, patrol vehicles. As you probably know, we traditionally replace vehicles on a rotating schedule of 2 1 year, 1 the following year, 2 1 year, 2 the next year, 1 the next. There's nothing magical about that sequencing except that it's tended to work. We pushed on that again this year to say, do we really need to replace the 2 patrol vehicles this year? And Chief McGowan felt that we do. The intent is to replace, I believe, the remaining 2 Crown Victoria cruisers. They'll be replaced by a Ford utility vehicle. Replacement's anticipated around January, February 2014. The mileage will be at a point there where he feels like it makes sense to replace them. He also points out that in determining when to replace them, it's not just about mileage, it's the hours on the vehicle as well. Another item for the police is the radio receiver for $30,000. Current unit is between 11 and 14 years old. Typical lifespan for these is about 12 years old. The receiver is situated at the middle school and the high school. It passes signals on from, say, a police cruiser back to the station. And along with the replacement of the Grossman Day Camp repeater that was replaced, I believe it was last fiscal year, this brings the system up to speed. So the committee supported that as well. And then last time for police anyway, was a mobile computer interface for $17,000. And the request for this was necessitated by the state's move to a new internet-based system. It would be server-based software that allows for direct communication with police, vehicle laptops, state, federal agencies. The software will streamline records management and reporting and provide ability to generate reports in the cruiser. Again, committee recommended that. Under that same category, a request for $35,000 for animal control. This would be a vehicle, a mini step van that would be specifically customized for the purpose of animal control. The vehicle they're using now, and I believe the ones in the past, have not been customized. So this will be specifically for the use of, the use in town for animal control. Expected life is 10 years. One of the questions that's come up is, how frequently is it used? Is this something we need? I think this was a question our committee had too. If you look at even just the town report, it was surprising to me how many incidents there are in town with, I believe there were 81 incidents of picking up dogs, I think 44 deer that were hit or killed, overall 541 calls in the last year. I know it's used, scheduled to be used 20 hours a week, but it's surprising how much activity it does seem to get.
Well, the alternative to that is to throw them in the police vehicles, and you don't want that.
We don't want
Right?
We don't want that.
About 5 years ago, she was using her own car.
Really?
that's true.
And we can't talk her into that again?
Okay. The Chickering School, the first item there, again, you see highlighted as the committee has not voted on that. We've asked Craig Hughes to take a look and to get his opinion on the paving portion of this. The area is it's in the rear of the school, and it includes the playground and the fire roads. There's an issue with drainage in this area. It's causing some erosion. So that's part of the need of this project. Secondarily, the fire road that connects the front of the front entrance of the school around the C wing by the playground and back down is very narrow for vehicles, police or fire vehicles to negotiate. Also, the turn radius is insufficient, so vehicles would have to go off the road, which may not be a huge deal if there's not snow, but you think about the snow we have there now, and maybe only the road is plowed, and maybe a vehicle couldn't get through there. So it needs to be it needs to be addressed.
Are those statutory requirements, or is it a local requirement by the fire department, how wide those fire roads are? How is that determined?
I don't know, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
I don't know. Craig mentioned that fire truck is 12 feet. So that, he would
The
recommend.
widest one, 12
Yes.
feet?
So
Okay.
he would recommend a road around 16 feet.
Right, and then considering that turning radius as
You
well.
could almost double, I imagine, the front of the building can't be more than 8 feet wide. So you're talking about double, okay. I was just wondering, so that's a rule of thumb, just.
That's
do
according to
something-
Craig. I don't think we haven't, to Mike's point, we haven't gotten the specificity from the school committee that we need on this one.
In the
Yeah.
Yeah, I
fire,
did actually reach out to Craig this morning. I haven't heard back. Jim, you had made the suggestion that we inquire about, was it Chapter 90 funding,
yeah. I-
potentially.
Yeah, I wanted,
And I looked into that. I wasn't able to determine if it would be eligible, but we'll look for a response from Craig to give us some insight on
okay,
that.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yep.
And on the matter of the fire department, Mr. Chairman, we
Yes.
can certainly, as a practical matter, consult the fire department to make sure whatever they do meets. fire
Ultimately,
department
wouldn't that drive the cost though? So shouldn't they come up with a plan, that's
Yes.
a requirement first, and then the
Yes.
cost would be driven? Okay.
Yep.
Sounds frustration.
And the other intent of communicating this with Craig is just to leverage the quote on the asphalt. So if the town's going to be purchasing and laying down asphalt for other purposes, to leverage this job in with it as well. So
Oh, I totally agree with that.
Certainly
They do
wanna
an
do that.
excellent job throughout the town, our highway department. So I totally believe you should leverage that.
And the school does save money by doing that, because the last year, the year before, where they used Craig's vendor for the filling the cracks, and ended up saving a lot of money.
Good. Okay, Mike, sorry, go ahead.
under Chickering School as well, The library carpet replacement, this was an item that had been requested last year, deferred into this year. The current carpet is original to the building. It's splitting and perhaps buckling in some places. The intent is that carpet squares would be installed to replace the full floor carpet. Suggestion or recommendation, maybe a requirement from Capital Budget Committee was to put in higher grade carpet in the entrance area, which makes sense because there'd be more high wear there, so that will be explored. The price involves not just the carpet itself, but the labor to move the shelves and store the books for the time it takes to install. So committee recommended and supported that. The next item from the schools was sidewalk light pole upgrade to LED. There are 9 light poles that are along the entrance drive to the school where kids are dropped off. The lights would be replaced with LED lighting due to the current issues they're having with leaking and ballast problems with the lights. The LEDs will take less energy, last longer, and this project's part of a longer-term effort to replace and put in LED where possible. The school anticipates applying for a grant to offset the cost through an energy incentive program.
So these are the 12 or 15-foot light poles, not the bollards,
Correct.
the walking bollards? Okay.
Correct. Yep, exactly. And then the last item for the facilities portion of school anyway is cafeteria power shades. These are on for 6,882. These are on, I believe it's 6 higher windows in the cafeteria. A lot of light comes in these windows, and it would, by having shades on them, it would enable for better usage for presentations, other events there. It doesn't seem like it would bring a lot of light in, but I was over there in the morning and you could see the impact that would have. Good news about this is there's already power installed and available for those shades. That's already in place there, and may not be a big impact, but they could be open or closed for heating and cooling as well. So, if you flip over to the other side of the sheet, on the still on Chickering, but on the technology side, a request for $30,000 that the committee has not recommended or voted on, and this is all for replacement hardware, computer hardware. The request is for 41 desktops, 11 laptops that are anticipated to be purchased. It's when we review the technology budget with the school every year, it's a bit of a challenge. I mean, technology is changing. There's multiple platforms. There's laptops. There's desktops. There are iPads. I think the school did a nice job of trying to be as specific as they could be here, detail out exactly which classrooms these would go to, and these are predominantly for classrooms. So we have not voted on this just because we're waiting for a final number. It's possible that this number could change, I believe, down. So we want to have a specific number, and again, with specific targeted machines to be replaced with this. And then finally, for school and for technology, a request for $14,000 for grades 2 and 3 device implementation. The intent is that these funds would be used for a pilot of iPads within those grades. Initially, the request was for a complete rollout, that this would be for 8 classrooms in 2nd and 3rd grade. School reconsidered that and said, before we spend all that money, as well as commit to it in subsequent years, let's do this as a pilot. Let's see if this works. Let's see if it gets traction. The questions that I think the committee always has around this is, is this part of a broader strategy? How does this fit with curriculum? Is it supported? Are teachers properly trained on this so that we just don't buy expensive hardware and it's neither used or integrated with curriculum?
So I was just going to ask that. So it's not a curriculum change, it's a learning aid?
Excuse me?
It's a learning aid more than a curriculum change? Is that properly put?
Yes, it really, and that's the big issue now, because as you start looking at iPads and tablets in the lower grades, it doesn't change the curriculum, it enhances the curriculum and allows for a different approach to learning the skills.
Right, so learning
So-
aid, okay.
Yeah.
It's how does it get done? Some teachers love to get involved in that kind of stuff, some teachers are more traditional. So as Mike said, I think a lot of credit to them for saying, you know what, let's just see how it works with a couple of classrooms first.
Yeah, I think in the first part of the description, they say, you know, it will provide a tool to access course content, perform related searches, analyze data, but the first thing they do say is to access course content. You know, they also mentioned this will allow students to collaborate on projects, engage in self-paced learning. It has the advantage of being lightweight and portable, and obviously would help, well, maybe not obviously, but it would help accommodate learning styles through different applications on it. So I think the school provided some thought and some detail behind the request, which was helpful and welcome.
Good, thank you.
The request from Board of Selectmen, there are 4 items here, so you're probably pretty familiar with those. The townhouse roof repairs for $15,000 originally had been contemplated that the entire roof might need to be replaced. You know, that was evaluated and determined that individual slates on the roof could be replaced. There would be some Copper Valley work, some repair of chimney flashing. That's necessary to prevent, you know, leakage, obviously extend the life of the roof and prevent a more costly replacement. The next item, $10,000 for replacement of the children's area carpet. This would, assuming that capital budget support or votes in favor of the $15,000 for library shelving, this syncs up with that. So it makes sense to put the 2 of these together. This was originally a request for 2015 and then moved in. The carpets, it's worn and it's gotten wet during recent flooding and ready for replacement. And then the last 2 items, both painting items, one $30,000 for townhouse clock tower and cupola, and then for the townhouse gutters and fascia for $15,000. So maintenance items, but larger maintenance items that therefore fall under capital budget.
Looking at the schedule, and it's quite detailed, thank you. You have requested, in the fiscal 2014, you have requested, voted, then recommended, and I see, is it maybe, I don't know why some of them that have been approved isn't in the recommended column?
That's just my oversight. I need to
Okay.
complete those. And what's indicated, you can see the ones that have an A
Right.
next to that have been voted. I just need to transfer
Okay,
those. So we'll get that right.
So the totals on the back page
Yeah,
have
get
to be
those
updated?
right in the blue book, right.
Okay, thank you.
And then, you know, provided just very briefly another schedule, which really just provides the history of both Article 5 and then other capital items that have been requested in the blue book. Going back to FY 2007, just to give some kind of historical context. And again, you know, on the Capital Budget Committee, we want to look at both individual projects and the rationale for those, as well as the absolute spending amount, and is this consistent, relatively consistent with years past. And the $708,000 that we're at now, we may not end up exactly at that, but it's in line over the historical averages. I think to the right you see some of those 3, 5, and 6-year averages there. The FY13 that you see in blue there is not averaged in. If that were averaged in, that would bring those averages up. We had a lot last year, including the ladder truck. But nonetheless, you know, that 700,000 is about what the 5-year and 5 and 6 year averages have been. So,
Good. I know you're on the committee.
Yes.
Voting member, I take it. Good, excellent. So, do you have any comments or questions for Mike?
No, I would add something to it, and it sort of ties to this great chart that Mike developed, and that we're keeping up on the averages and so forth. The Capital Budget Committee a year or 2 ago spent a lot of time talking to both the local school committee and the regional school committee about the schools that were both going off of warranty around the same time. And to their credit, they went ahead and hired a company called On-Site Insight to do respective reports on the facilities. And what they do is they take a look at all the systems, the physical plant, the mechanical plant, and everything. They come up with this huge report with these huge spreadsheets, looking at when warranties expire, when recommended replacements, and all that kind of stuff. So you have everything together. And as long as the schools keep it up and update it, it's a fantastic, fantastic tool in school. And I've used that tool in another hat that I've had, and it really works very, very well.
Yeah.
But what it has shown, as to be expected, is that we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital expenditures that have been identified through this at both Chickering and the region over the next 10 to 15 years. So millions of dollars over the next 10 years. And we don't, as a town, tend to do long-range financial planning. You know, we asked boards and committees for a 5-year look at capital, and we sort of keep a feel for that, but we don't really do a formal long-range financial planning. This is a case, though, where we know that we've got this huge liability out there that's going to have to be carefully managed because of its impact on the finances in Dover. So what we talked about at last week's meeting was, after this budget cycle is over and things calm down, that we meet with the superintendent of schools and the representative school committees, subcommittee or whoever, to really step back and say, this process that we have here is fine, except now that we know what we know, it's really not sufficient. And they really need to step back and figure out how we, as a capital budget committee and as a warrant committee, and then as the capital budget committee and advisory committee, I'm sure Sherburne's thinking the same thing on the region, really look to manage these incredible increase in expenses that we're going to be seeing.
Right, yeah, the study didn't come a moment too soon in terms of, as Carol said, the age of the school. I mean, it's, will be extremely helpful just in terms of providing some visibility that we didn't have, and we're able to, you know, get some line of sight on these things and do something about it.
I think that's a great idea going forward.
Yeah,
I have seen some of the magnitude of the dollars, and they're large. They're large. Oh, good. That's a good idea. Joe, do you have any
I
questions?
have a couple of minor questions.
Sure.
I can help. The truck and the park and rec, that have any trade-in value?
So the intent is to auction the truck, which was done initially by Chief McGowan at the police station, and he had good luck doing that.
They're an e-commerce company, is that correct?
That's right.
He's not out there with the paddles for an auction.
If he could get more, he might. I don't know if I've got an estimate of that. I don't have a specific number. You know, it's a vehicle from year 2000. It's old, it has wear, but looking at it, it should have some value.
The other question is, when you talk about new rugs, you rather use squares or they,
Yeah.
someone drops a bottle of ink on a piece of the rug, you get a square, you can take the square out.
Yeah, and we did use the squares at the Chickering School for the office area. The last time they replaced that carpet in the office area, and for exactly that purpose. So if there's a stain or something spilled in one area, you don't need to either cut out or replace the entire carpet. So that makes sense.
Good.
And I can't remember that, but I'm just trying to look when we talked about the library, whether we talked about squares or not. I think so. And
Yeah, that was for the school that we specifically.
yeah, but no, I mean the children's room
We're also
at the
contemplating
squares, and because they do come in different grades, we could, you know, accordingly. Yep.
Okay. Well, Mike, thank you. That was a very good,
Good.
wrap up.
Good, thank you.
And, you know, I hope the townspeople realize how hard you guys work to vet through all the details and all these departmental requests. And you really get down to the nitty-gritty, and then obviously offer a little advice for the Blue Book. But thank you very much for.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, and thank you to John, Carol, and the other capital budget committees members and the departments in town who have been very cooperative in working with us.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Okay, I believe we're on to the next agenda item, which is review the draft of the 2013 town meeting warrant and order articles. Now, okay. Dave, how do you want to go about this? Just generally talk about the special warrant articles, because I know we have a draft copy of the warrant in front of us. We'll review it, and it's due to be signed February 28th, I believe, and mailed out to our townspeople on March 8th.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so this evening, we just basically look through it, talk about maybe any special warrant articles that have changed, or since we've talked about them in the last two meetings. The special, I do know that two of the special warrant articles that we've talked about are now gone. And the first one that I can definitively speak to is the Park and Rec placeholder. And they've withdrawn that special warrant article placeholder. And the second would be the alternative funding for the HVAC system at the Dover-Sherburne Regional Middle School. And the reason that was withdrawn,
There will only be one source and way to fund it. It's to be determined whether it's.
so that it wasn't necessary, the first placeholder wasn't
No, they asked
necessary?
for two, but really, ultimately, it'll be funded one way or another.
Okay, and that was at the request of the Dover-Sherburne Regional Middle School?
That's good.
Okay, so those two special warrant articles are now not there. So we have 22 warrant articles in total, and I believe 9 special warrant articles. Now, the only one that has changed, or has some substance changed since we've last spoken about them, is the funding of the HVAC system installation at the regional, the middle school. And if you recall, we were trying to, or the regional school committee has requested that we fund it through either an intermunicipal agreement, which would allow each town to fund it as they see fit, or that they would, if that wasn't feasible or doable, then they would bond it. Now, from what I have read in our local papers, I think we have a couple of questions that have to be answered, and things that I do not understand that I have read in the paper. And first and foremost, if the Board of Selectmen, this board, entered into the intermunicipal agreement, would that commit the town to pay for the project? I don't know the answer to that. Can we get that answer?
We certainly can,
Because that
Mr.
would
Chairman.
perhaps alter our view. In seeking guidance, and we've sought guidance from town council, bond council, and clearly they have one view. Sherburne, in the paper that I was reading, has a different view. What statewide authority should be asked for this advice? It was stated in the newspaper the Department of Revenue is giving advice out on this. And I was wondering what authoritative.
It's a good question, Mr. Chairman. If we're interested in trying to explore the nature of the disagreement, it would seem to me,
I'll get to that, but no, please, go ahead.
because it's not clear to me that that statewide authority needs to be consulted when bond counsel in particular has opined and bond counsel is considered an authoritative source, having issued bonds with intermunicipal agreement authority many, many times over with no problems with institutional investors and their counsels. So it's not clear that there's a need to go to a higher authority, given the opinions that have been rendered already.
Okay, thank you. And it gets to the conversation between the three entities' lawyers. And I know there was some push for everyone to talk. Three lawyers, so they should get down and talk, okay, what's the disagreement? So I don't know why that hasn't happened to date, and if there's some hurdle that has to be gotten over. But I would suggest that the three entities' attorneys talk. Okay, financial capabilities aside, you know, we've taken a position that this project is very important and important to, number one, to teachers, important to the next union contract, but first and foremost, it's the health concern of the teachers and the students. And I don't understand how a governing body can hesitate or be wishy-washy and not backing this project and getting it done as soon as possible. I looked at that raw data again that the regional school committee came in and did a great presentation for. And imagine sitting trying to learn something in 95-degree weather. I just can't understand why this particular project isn't speeding through a system. I'm dumbfounded because of it. So, you know, I urge every student, every family of the students, the teachers, their families, the administration, their families, to, you know, talk to the governing boards and support this project. It has to get done. I go on a high horse there, but I'm sorry, this project is very important to the students. It's very important to the teachers, health-wise, and it's very important to the teachers in the next union contract.
Well, I will tell you, having been involved in this past union contract, this issue has come up for the last 6 years. And finally, the contract that was negotiated made a commitment versus wishy-washy commitments in the past that were never implemented, to do something with an absolute promise that in the context of the entire agreement that was reached relative to compensation and healthcare and everything else, which was a fantastic win-win contract for everybody, that in that context, this was an incredibly important part of the major issues involved with that negotiation and with everybody agreeing to approve it. So from that issue alone, as far as credibility of the Dover and the Sherburne Selectmen, school committees, the regional school committee, the Sherburne Selectmen and the Sherburne committees, they were all involved in negotiating that contract. This has got to happen. Absolutely has got to happen.
Mr. Chairman, I second your thoughts.
Thank you, Joe. But just to reiterate, the Dover Board of Selectmen, we fully support the project. We'll agree to enter into a intermunicipal agreement which we feel is, and have been told is legal, if necessary, and want the project done in one phase, not over a few years. So that's our stand. We've been very consistent in our stand, and I want to continue that. I want to totally support the regional school committee in a project that has to get done.
Hear, hear.
Okay. Thank you for listening to me on that one. Now, no other special warrant articles have changed this evening, so we will review the warrant in itself from now until our next meeting. And again, we'll sign it on the 28th. Now, we have to sign warrant articles this evening. Order the articles, thank you. Instead of sign, I'm looking at the calendar, thank you. Now, okay, that being said, the list that I've been given, is this the same in the book, Greer?
The revised February 1st list?
Yes.
That is
Okay.
the list.
So I can look at
That
this?
is current, yes.
Okay. We have to order the, and I will look to experience here. Well, everyone around me has experience on what you feel is a proper order for these articles. And we're just talking the special warrant articles. The boilerplate ones stay in their position.
Typically, that's correct.
Okay. So the first one,
Well, you
medical
know,
marijuana one would be the first special article.
right.
You may lose a quorum if you put it too far up.
Too far back, Joe? Or?
Too
Yeah.
far up. You don't want people come sit and take a hike.
Yes, we're always concerned about the quorum, so that's a good point.
Well, there's really, to me, right now, we've got Article 10, Article 11, and Article 15 are the three that are probably of most interest.
You don't think the planning board, the addition of the associate member might draw our interest? No? I don't know.
No, yeah, that's just, no, I don't see that
Okay.
at all. To Joe's point, despite the town moderator always reminding everybody in the beginning, please do not leave until the meeting is over, because we have to have him on, a quorum even when we, get to article, in this case, 22.
Hmm.
People always do tend to leave.
Okay.
When their self-interest is voted upon. So, to Joe's point, I think it would be good if we sort of, and there aren't a lot of them, if we took the ones that we anticipate being of more interest and putting them towards the back end
Okay.
of the list. Article 10 might be of interest only because we're recommending something that the town voted the opposite for in the state election.
Right. Okay,
So-
point well taken. So why don't we move that down to,
Maybe we take Article 12, make that Article 10.
do we have to vote on these, or we just do it?
Typically, you do vote on the order
Okay, but as we're going on, we can do it after the fact.
when you're done.
Thank you.
Sometimes it changes.
Okay,
Recognizing that it is an evening meeting, that the seniors have had issues about having to stay late.
excellent
So
point.
out of respect for their needs, perhaps do that as the first special article.
Good. Okay.
And then we can get the planning board article taken care of real quick. So Article 14 would become Article 11.
Good.
Then then we could make Article 10, Article 12. I mean,
And Article 12. Well, the other thought is, just pull out Article 10 and bring it to, push everything up and put it at the back end. Right? Follow my
so make
thinking?
Article 10, Article 16.
16, basically, and push everything up.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense?
Yep, you could do that.
Joe, does that make sense to you?
To me, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah,
So
this
10
is-
becomes 16, 11 becomes 15, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, okay, yes, yeah, I'll go with that thought, yeah.
13 becomes 12,
10, 11, 12, yep,
15 becomes 13, and 16 becomes 14?
love it. 16 becomes, 15 is which one? 15 is 13.
15 is 13.
And 16
16
is
is 14.
14. I think that's, makes a lot of
Let's
sense.
see what we've got. So we've got that, we've got that.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
12 could be a big issue if it stays, or a new 12.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So, what we do this evening, Dave, this is concrete?
You could certainly change, well, we need to sign it next meeting, so essentially this is concrete.
Okay.
Yes.
I like what we've done. Okay. So, that being said, Special Article 10 will be a petition by the Council Aging for funding for a standalone senior center feasibility study. Article 11 will be Planning Board amend a section of the code to add one associate member. Article 12 would be a citizen's petition requiring town meeting approval for the substantial changes to town-owned property. 13 would be from the Regional School Committee, funding for the installation of the HVAC system at the middle school, which we just spoke of. 14 would be also from the Regional School Committee, and that's funding for other general capital needs, and that was born out of the on-site
On-site insight
Insight.
report. Yep.
report that Carol mentioned. 15 would be Board of Selectmen and a rail trail placeholder. 16 would also be the Board of Selectmen, and that's the medical marijuana dispensary cultivation, prohibition and/or moratorium, and we'll figure that part out. So that's the order of the special warrant articles. And do I hear a?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very good, thank you. So the order is done. Where I have a cheat sheet, if you can keep up with my rapid fire changes of that.
I think I got it.
Okay, are we done with the, now again, we have to sign that the 28th.
Yes.
It'll be printed and mailed out to townspeople on March 8th. So everyone look for that, please.
So has the wording goes back to the sponsor to make sure that the intent is,
Okay.
you know, in going through this and thinking about what is now Article 14, the funding for general capital needs for the regional school budget, relative to what Mike and I were talking about with the capital budget and the need. In addition to understanding the needs and to see how it fits into the financial picture, this funding issue, which has haunted us, this is now the second year in a row, it haunted us with the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, actually.
It's haunting us again.
3 years ago, right.
If we start spending significant six-figure numbers each year on maintenance of the regional schools, and we kept get into this funding issue with Sherburne every single year, it's an absurd way to proceed.
Yeah, that's an excellent thought, and maybe we'll, when you meet with the administration, once this town meeting's passed and everything, perhaps bundle some, couple of years together or something. Because
Something.
the financing costs are so low these days. Maybe the appetite for doing things on a more accelerated basis is better. Good, I look forward to those summer meetings. Okay. Okay, we're done with the annual town warrant and the review. Other business, we're on to the next agenda item. We have special license, one special license, I see. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And this is at the Elm Bank on April 26th, 2013. And it's the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America.
Well, there's an
swing
irony.
gala. Yeah. Yeah, really. They're gonna have the allergy foundations in the middle of.
And Mass
Right? I'm gonna sell tissue there. I'm gonna make a fortune. Okay. Do I hear I see the chief's signature, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You know that Elm Bank was listed as one of the top places for weddings and special events by The Knot, which is a magazine for weddings and stuff in New England?
Yeah, I didn't get my subscription this month, I don't know, the snow and everything. I didn't know what happened. But that's good for them. I did not know that. Thank you. Next agenda item is snow and ice authorization. Dave, you want to speak to this?
Mayor, a scant 2 weeks ago, the superintendent of streets was ruminating that perhaps for the second year in a row, he would return snow and ice money to the town. As you recall, last year, for the first time in anybody's memory, that happened. 2 weeks later, he's requesting an additional $75,000 in anticipation that he might exceed the snow and ice appropriation. Due to this, obviously, the most recent storm. He spent a lot of money. Did a great job.
Okay. And, original budget was 290,000. This will bring it up to 365. I will say that Craig and his group including his vendors, subcontractors, did an outstanding job over the weekend in moving a huge amount of snow around. And, I traveled from Dover to the surrounding communities, and there was a big difference once you left the town of Dover. So he should be commended, and everyone who worked on, very, very hard over basically 3 or 4 days, straight out. Did a great job. Okay. Does anyone make a motion on this?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve an additional $75,000 for the snow and ice budget.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Brad. The next is approve the January 17th, 2013 meeting minutes. This particular meeting, we had a request for the use of a right-of-way behind the town garage onto Haven Street by a Haven Street resident. And we also discussed the HVAC project, which went into a little farther today, and we talked about the special warrant articles. I know I had a lot of changes to this last night, and it looks good.
Get a chance to look at this, so let me, there's just a little typo on line 33.
Oh, they're out, yeah, including, yep. Let's see.
Also line 46, so,
Yep, that, the dot there, or,
yeah, so I'm not sure what the, what that means. I mean, was a viable funding, legal funding mechanism,
Legal
or
counsel opined that the IA was a viable funding mechanism. The legal
Right.
should be,
for mechanism?
Okay.
47, board agreed that there's an extra the
That-
there, so take off the
that.
the, that it is their intention to pay for this cash.
good. The rail trail one, I wanted, I see,
Let's take a look at another typo on 62.
this is the result.
Typo on 66.
Yep. What I found when we, I see a draft of these, it's literally just a couple of hours before I have an opportunity to turn around and get it back and then review it again. I did not review my changes at all prior to tonight, prior to this meeting. So maybe we can space that out a little better.
We'll do our best.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let me just focus on this for a moment. The, I guess I'd like to change the rail trail committee right up here. My apologies for not getting to this yesterday.
We can put this off to the next meeting, Carol, if you'd like.
Well, that's okay, we can just do it, I think it's important for the town to be able to access minutes on a timely basis, so if we can just approve it as amended. The Rail Trail Committee has a placeholder, if it decides to present a recommendation.
Okay.
Based on the ongoing feasibility study, the town meeting in May. the fact of the matter is that, I would change that to say that, I would just take out that sentence.
Okay.
The last one?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I thought you might have an opinion on that particular paragraph. Okay,
Typo on line 73.
yep, see that? Space between 81 and 82 is needed. Another line, I should say.
Rest of it looks okay to me.
Good. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the minutes of January 17th, 2013 as amended.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
So I know we're sort of one behind. Do you think, would it be possible? I don't, I know the workload with now with the town meeting coming up and all, but is it possible to sort of catch up?
We tried this time
I'm
around,
sure.
we truly did,
Yeah.
yeah, with all that's going on with the
Yeah,
war.
exactly.
It's tight, yeah.
Okay. Good, thank you. Next agenda item, citizens' comments. Would anyone like to speak up from our audience? Thank you. Carol or Joe would like to speak?
I do.
Please.
I had the honor of attending the recycling committee meeting on Monday morning. They're doing some really interesting things, but as many of you know, every March, the recycling committee sponsors a town cleanup day. And this year, it's scheduled for March 30th. Amy Wilcox is the coordinator of it, as well as chair of the committee. They are looking for neighborhood coordinators. It tends to work best when neighborhoods gather together, and there's some neighborhoods that make a day of it and party and so forth. So if anybody's interested in either being a neighborhood coordinator or just being an individual contributor to clean up a section of your street, please contact Amy. She gave me permission to publicize both her phone number and email address. She may come to regret this, but Amy Wilcox, 617-694-8815. Or you can reach her at amydwilcox@mac.com.
Very good, thank you. That's always actually a great day for the community, to see everybody out there. And last year, I think it was raining perhaps, but, you know, it's always a great day for the community to clean up. I support that wholeheartedly. Joe, do you have anything this evening?
No, I just wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, aren't you nice, Joe? Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you and good night.